Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Oak Ridge Small Business Diversity Summit. I'm Charlie Malarkey, and I'll be your host for today's activities. Over the next 2 hours, we'll be talking with you and our panel members about building a pipeline for a better diverse workforce, sharing best practices and tips that you can bring home back to your workplace. First up, I'll be introducing Dr. Chris Whaley from Roane State Community College. Dr. Whaley has been with Roane State for over 20 years and is currently serving as the president of Roane State Community College. Roane State is a partner in this summit, and so we've invited Dr. Whaley to come in and introduce some of our other speakers. I've personally had the opportunity to interact with Dr. Whaley and his faculty and some of his students over the past 12 years, and I just think it's such a terrific program. They really have a great place there. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Whaley.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate those kind words. And at the risk of embarrassing him, let me just say that Charlie is a great partner and collaborator with Roane State Community College. And much of the success that we enjoy is thanks to the work that he and his team provide, particularly their work with Kim Harris, whom I want to thank for making this, my participation possible today. I want to welcome all of you again, and just really quickly, as Charlie said, Roane State's blessed to get to partner in today's very, very important event. And before I introduce Ken, I just want to let you know that, in case you don't, among the higher education institutions in Tennessee that are part of the Tennessee Board of Regents system, and there are 40 institutions, 13 community colleges, and 27 Tennessee colleges of applied technology. For about 11 or 12 years now, we've been really focused in on student success. And that's important, and good work has been done. Important work remains. But in the last year or so, maybe the last couple of years, the system has importantly focused our success lens, if you will, particularly on equity and how we can do better, how we can improve our student success rates for students of color. And those important conversations are now turning into important action items. And we know that as a college, Roane State, one of the things that we really need to work on regarding diversity inclusion is just exactly what today is about, and that is our workforce. It's important for our students of color to be able to look and see folks who look like them when they come to Roane State. That is too often not the case now. We are working to make it be the case moving forward. And at the risk of embarrassing her, I want to thank Claudia Caballero, who is not only a member of the Roane State Foundation Board, but also is doing some incredibly important work with Roane State as a whole, in having some tough but important conversations as to how Roane State does a much better job moving forward serving the Latino and Latina communities. And so I want to thank Claudia very much for that. I want to thank UCOR. The partnership with UCOR is not something that I can surmise and summarize in the few seconds that I have here, but I want all of the UCOR folks to know just how grateful we are for your partnership. Many of our academic programs, environmental health, chemical technology, et cetera, mechatronics, feed right in to the workforce needs of UCOR and our other partners in Oak Ridge. And they are just such a key collaborator with us, and we're so grateful. And I also want to thank them for their generosity. In the past few years, their giving to help Roane State student success increase has surpassed $100,000, which is extremely generous. And from the bottom of our hearts to all of UCOR, we're grateful to be your partner, and we're grateful for your generosity. And with that, let me do what I'm called to do here, and that is the pleasure of introducing Ken Reuter, the president and CEO of UCOR. who is not only a tremendous and innovative leader, but I'm proud to call him a friend. UCOR, of course, is the prime contractor for the environmental cleanup on DOE's Oak Ridge Reservation. And UCOR's workforce of more than 1,900 workers completed cleanup of the East Tennessee Technology Park in 2020 on time and under budget. They are now performing cleanup work at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, as well as the Y-12 Security Complex. And again, everything that I said about the company as a whole, UCOR, is certainly reflected by and reflective of Ken Reuter as the leader. And it's, again, just a blessing to get to work with Ken on a regular basis. And now Ken will share a little bit more about why we're having today's event. Ken?
Well, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Whaley. UCOR is really pleased to partner with Roane State to present today's summit. For everybody's benefit, UCOR is an Amenum-led partnership with Jacobs. We have a small business teaming partner, RSI Intech. UCOR has responsibility for performing environmental cleanup efforts across the DOE Oak Ridge Reservation, and we've been carrying out that mission for the federal government and for the region since 2011. One of the primary values for us is to really be engaged, involved, and support and enhance the communities that we all live in and work in. You know, at the end of the day, we have a principle, commitment, and objective to make sure that we leave the community better than when we arrived. More than just carrying out the environmental cleanup that we do, but improving and enriching the life of all those that make up the community. We implement programs and initiatives to improve the community and, again, to enrich it. And one of the focus areas with regard to that includes diverse people and organizations across a multi-county region that makes up the Oak Ridge Reservation. As I said, we've been here since approximately 2011, and we've been committed and focused on programs that enhance diversity, inclusion, and we do that through what we call our shared governance approach. This is an approach in which we welcome, you know, all parties that are part of our mission to our table, if you will, to ensure equity is built amongst all the parties carrying the work out, and most importantly, all that are involved, which is our entire community, are included. As an organization, we're committed to developing a pipeline of workers for environmental cleanup, the work that we're doing today and the work of the future. There's a significant amount of environmental stewardship and environmental cleanup necessary to be done here in the Oak Ridge Reservation to ultimately complete it. And we understand and appreciate directly the value of our workforce in carrying that out, and how critically important it is that organization, that workforce, is diverse in race, culture, age, gender, as well as skills, ideas, approaches, thoughts, critical thinking to problem solving. Our company has diversity awareness and appreciation program. One of the program's objectives is to make sure that we continue to embrace and leverage the diversity of the workforce in order ultimately to promote and generate the notable outcomes that our community and the federal government expect of us, all done through our workforce. As part of this overall initiative, we host and implement a number of different approaches and techniques. One is doing lunch and learns sessions, you know, that supports organizational learning across our diverse population, collaborates with organizations like labor to, most importantly, promote diversity and focus within the workforce. We place an emphasis on recruiting talent from historically Black colleges and universities, partnering with these organizations to promote scholarships for minority students, and initiating internships and apprentice programs aimed at increasing diversity amongst our workforce and focused towards helping those underserved communities that make up our region. A couple of years ago, we had the benefit of holding our first Small Business Diversity Inclusion Summit at Pellissippi State. This year, we're back with a virtual summit, and what a better way to bolster diversity in our industry than having a forum like this one, continuing to engage our small business partners and help them be involved to the critical successes of cleaning up the Oak Ridge Environmental Management Facility. Our small business partners span all the socioeconomic categories, and this summit is a way for us to support their missions and goals, which in turn makes us stronger, more diverse, more innovative in carrying out our environmental stewardship and cleanup mission. I welcome all of you today and thank you for joining us in what I know will be an exceptional program with valuable information for your companies, and I'm sure you'll experience the same benefits for those of you that participated in our first summit. Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce to you Jay Mullis, the manager of the Oak Ridge Environmental Management Office for the Department of Energy. And Jay will introduce our keynote speaker for today.
Hey, good morning. As Ken said, I'm Jay Mullis, manager of the Department of Energy's Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management. It's a pleasure to join all of you this morning. I couldn't be more proud of the leadership Roane State and our contractor UCOR has shown to host today's Diversity Summit. It gives viewers free access to valuable training that can help improve their businesses and communities. The cost of training, as all of you know, can often be an obstacle for small businesses with their limited resources. The teamwork and generosity of these partners remove that barrier and give small businesses access to meaningful insights and perspectives shared by their experienced professionals that will be here today. It's my honor to introduce Nicole Nelson, who is today's keynote speaker. Excuse me. While she is my boss and is at headquarters, more importantly, she's someone I respect, admire, and who possesses a tremendous amount of experience and expertise. I know her insights and perspective will be valuable to everyone watching. Nicole oversees field operations for the department's Office of Environmental Management. This is a massive responsibility that involves leading 16 sites nationwide, including ours here in Oak Ridge. And she has an annual budget of approximately $7 billion dedicated to cleaning land that was impacted by former research in nuclear weapons development. Nicole's resume and work experience has it all. She currently works in Washington, D.C. after years of working abroad and also at sites across the country, South Carolina, California, and New Mexico. She's led and supported efforts ranging from environmental cleanup to infrastructure, nuclear safety, nuclear security, nuclear energy, non-proliferation, and business and contract management. Earlier in her career, she served abroad with a focus on nuclear security and overseeing NNSA interests in Asia and the Pacific Rim. She has also been honored with the Distinguished Presidential Rank Award and the Service to America Award from the Partnership for Public Service. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Grambling State University, a master's degree in liberal arts from St. John's University, a master's degree in strategic security studies from the National Defense University, and today's participation highlights who she is. While she has a tremendous number of demands due to her position, and she heard about this program and specifically reached out to us to be part of it. So she wanted to not only support it, but actually be part of it. We're thankful for leaders like her who are guiding the Department of Energy. I know her message today will give us all something to think about and work toward. Please join me in welcoming Nicole.
Thank you, Jay, for that introduction, and thank you to Dr. Chris Whaley and Ken Reuter for inviting me to speak today. I'm glad to be here and have the opportunity to talk about the importance of having strong diversity and inclusion efforts that increase what we are able to accomplish and enhances the workplace and strengthens our role as a community partner. I'm very happy to be in Oak Ridge this week, filming this discussion with you. I've been to Oak Ridge many times over the past 28 plus years that I've worked in the DOE complex. I understand well the many important missions at the site in national security, science, and most recently in environmental management. I also understand and appreciate the history of the secret city. But I only recently learned about a part of Oak Ridge's history that I had not heard of before, and it fits well with our discussion today. I learned about the Oak Ridge 85 from the Scarborough School. For those not familiar, the Scarborough School was a school that was built by the government and became the only school in the community for Black elementary, middle, and high school students. 85 students from Scarborough were integrated into the Oak Ridge school system in September 1955. These 85 Black students were integrated before the Clinton 12 in 1956 and the Little Rock 9 in 1957. Only a dozen or so of the Oak Ridge 85 are still alive today. When I watched the interview of one gentleman, I was moved by his comment that if he had it all to do over again, he would not have gone and been integrated into the other school. He said he spent 4 years, his freshman to senior year, never joining a club, playing a sport, and doing nothing after school. He never really integrated where he was going to school. I'm asked often about the difference between diversity and inclusion. The best definition I've ever heard was not mine, but one given by the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, Cynthia Marshall, the first Black CEO in the NBA. She said diversity is about numbers, but inclusion is about being part of the decisions and the culture of the organization. Diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being asked to dance at that party. There are so many lessons in this story of heroism of these young Black students, the Oak Ridge 85. But it's not just about the numbers and getting the invitation in. As this gentleman mentioned in his interview, it's about being asked to dance. Environmental management has a long history in the state of Tennessee and partnering with this community to meet its mission of environmental remediation from decades worth of work in nuclear weapons development and government-sponsored nuclear energy research. We are working hard to protect the environment today, and by tackling our past environmental legacy, we are working to develop safer, cleaner sites and new economic opportunities for the future. To continue accomplishing this important work, we need a diverse pipeline of talent that can not only help us achieve our mission, but can bring new, innovative approaches to the ways in which we do our work. Much of the environmental management workforce across the complex, including here in Oak Ridge, is approaching or at retirement age. Within 5 years, 50% of the Oak Ridge Environmental Management Office will be eligible to retire. EM has about 25 years of work left of work at Oak Ridge to do, which means we need to look to the future to develop trained and qualified workers and managers to keep us moving forward in Oak Ridge. It is crucial that as we are establishing this pipeline, we ensure that diverse perspectives, talents, ethnic and racial backgrounds, and genders are represented. Prioritizing diversity is not only about being inclusive, it's being and doing the smart things to achieve our success. A recent Boston consulting company group study found that companies with diverse management teams have over 19% higher revenues related to innovation. As the Department of Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, stated in March at the Waste Management Symposium, diversity is what makes the workforce and this country so strong. And that when we put inclusion at the center of our work, we can deliver the best results for all Americans. Secretary Granholm stated her commitment to looking at how we build a diverse pipeline of talent in the Department of Energy and called upon our contractors to do the same. Ensuring that our workforce comes from a multitude of backgrounds enhances the perspectives that we can gain on opportunities and challenges, and it drives the creativity that is needed to resolve issues. Well, this year has emphasized the need to work collectively to overcome significant and unforeseen challenges. As we have worked to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic over the past year, we are continually reminded of the importance of keeping our workforce safe. Environmental management is working hard with our contracting partners to do just that. We have partnered together to modify telework policies to allow for telework wherever possible, to enhance hygiene practices, to erect protective measures and temperature check stations, and to provide the information technology solutions to allow work to continue, even while working from home. We have put robust safety protocols in place to protect essential workers. DOE worked diligently to ensure an adequate stockpile of personal protective equipment for the workforce. Various controls have been established, such as random and rapid testing and strict contact tracing protocols. The EM workforce has been proactive in finding ways to keep each other safe and has found innovative solutions to challenges posed by COVID. And our efforts continue. In March this year, Secretary Granholm released the DOE COVID Safety Plan, which emphasizes reliance on data and science-based guidance issued by the CDC, and that is consistent with public health recommendations. During the first 2 weeks of March, every environmental management site and headquarters held a COVID safety pause to formally introduce the DOE COVID Safety Plan, to review best practices and lessons learned that were collected from across the EM enterprise, and to have discussions about challenges that the workforce has faced in the workplace related to COVID over the past year. In regards to vaccines, states are primarily responsible for distribution, so we are working with the states to prioritize and vaccinate our workforce. Vaccines have been obtained by some of our larger sites for distribution, and we are encouraging our workforce to obtain a vaccine shot as soon as they are able. Oak Ridge is one of our sites that has been able to disseminate vaccines directly. And despite these challenges, the EM workforce has found ways to continue to have tremendous success over the past year. At the Savannah River site, the salt waste processing facility commenced hot operations in January this year. This is allowing us to tackle the significant challenge of treating liquid waste on the site. At the waste isolation pilot plant in New Mexico, construction has begun on a 5th utility shaft, which will increase ventilation throughout the mine and support a new hoisting capability for transporting materials. At Hanford in Washington State, the direct feed low activity waste construction was completed and has been turned over to commissioning. This is a significant step in EM's tank waste treatment program. The Oak Ridge site is, of course, one of particular importance to the Department of Energy as one of the 3 original sites in the Manhattan Project and the important role that it still plays. The 3 sites in Oak Ridge that are today the East Tennessee Technology Park, the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and Y-12 conducted work purifying isotopes, manufacturing weapons components, and enriching uranium. As important as these activities were for the benefit of the nation and our national security, the environmental legacies of this work placed the Oak Ridge Reservation on the Environmental Protection Agency's National Priorities List in 1989. Today, environmental management is the landlord of the East Tennessee Technology Park for ETTP as cleanup responsibilities at Oak Ridge National Lab and Y-12. 2020 was a big year for EM at ETTP. We are proud to have completed the multi-year Vision 2020 at ETTP last year, with groundwater and soil remediation work ongoing. This achievement marks the first cleanup of uranium enrichment complex throughout the world. We completed demolition of more than 500 structures, totaling 13 million square feet. Our work at ETTP was completed more than 4 years ahead of schedule, saving $500 million in taxpayer dollars. We have completed construction on the K-25 History Center at ETTP, and we're able to open the center this year. With demolition complete at ETTP, OREM will shift the focus of its workforce to address facilities at Oak Ridge National Laboratory and Y-12. This year, we began demolition on the final structures of the Y-12 biology complex. This work will be completed this year and will conclude 320,000 square feet of demolished facilities. We have also begun construction on the sludge processing mock test facility. This facility is essential in testing and maturing technology related to the future processing of sludge true waste at Oak Ridge. Environmental management is grateful for the strong community partnerships that we have within the state of Tennessee, with Anderson and Roane counties, with the city of Oak Ridge, and with the local community organizations that have allowed us to meet these important objectives. On April 13th, Environmental Management released its 2021 to 2031 strategic vision, renewing our commitment to fulfilling the moral and ecological responsibility of cleaning up past contamination and setting forth our priorities to accomplish that mission. With the historic achievements that were made in 2020, we have reached an inflection point in the EM program, bringing forth a new era of accelerated cleanup momentum. And we recognize that meeting our mission in environmental management means leveraging the tremendous potential of the nation through our future workforce. And to do that, it must reflect the diversity of the nation. The first place to start to attain this diversity and inclusion is in our own thinking. We need to have a mindset of inclusion and of embracing diversity by bringing people together that come from varied backgrounds. People that may not look like you, may be from a different area than from where you're from, and that went to schools with which you may not be familiar. We need to recognize the differences, bringing innovation, fresh thinking, and different ways of approaching problems that can accelerate our capabilities. We need to keep this perspective in the forefront of our minds as we approach our work every day, as we listen to each other, and as we plan for the future. We can also leverage organized programs that reach out to diverse communities to promote inclusion that can help us meet our diversity objectives. The Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management participates in the Minority Serving Institution Partnership Program each year, managed by the Savannah River National Laboratory in South Carolina. The program's mission is to create and sustain a pipeline of students in the fields of science, technology, engineering, mathematics from minority-serving institutions that are prepared for careers in those fields. There are several ways that this program contributes to the students' exposure and development. It increases infrastructure capacity, provides students with access to world-class resources and research opportunities, and directly exposes them to collaborative academic and professional experiences. These students have received training and development in areas of cybersecurity, safety, security, waste management, and project management. The program also increases their awareness of the Department of Energy's mission and exposes DOE and its contractors as potential career opportunities for these students. One student that was with us from North Carolina Agricultural Technical State University, majoring in cybersecurity, assisted Oak Ridge with the review of our cybersecurity needs and identified vulnerabilities within our program. We had a graduate student from an applied geospatial information program at Tennessee State University in Nashville, working on EM's geospatial information science capabilities, identifying land areas included on EPA's national priority list. We had another student from Morehouse College in Atlanta that was studying business administration. As these examples can attest, the Minority Serving Institution Partnership Program benefits the students that participate, but but also help the environmental management organization become stronger. As Secretary Granholm indicated in her statements last month, commitment to diversity is a team effort between our federal and contract partners. UCOR's Workforce Development Plan contains the stated goals of embracing and leveraging diversity to advance the cleanup mission at Oak Ridge and attracting and retaining a diverse workforce that is reflective of the East Tennessee region. UCOR does this by increasing diversity awareness and appreciation, collaborating with labor unions to promote diversity in the labor workforce, promoting EM careers among diverse populations, and emphasizing career development and networking among diverse populations of the workforce. UCOR hosts quarterly programs to empower women at UCOR through mentorship, exposure to leadership topics, and networking. They host diversity awareness lunch and learn sessions with guest speakers. UCOR and other DOE prime contractors participate in the East Tennessee Apprenticeship Readiness Program, which works with local and underrepresented communities to introduce them to apprenticeship programs. UCOR is conducting outreach to historically Black colleges and universities. They are currently partnering with DOE's Office of Legacy Management and its Mentorship for Environmental Scholars program to provide internships to 3 students from HBCUs. UCOR Supply Chain Management Organization prioritizes minority-owned and small businesses in their procurement activities and have established goals for several business categories. UCOR's goal for small disadvantaged businesses is 10% of its total procurement dollars. Between 2011 and March of this year, 14% of procurement dollars have gone to small disadvantaged businesses. We are proud of the efforts of UCOR and our other contracting partners in prioritizing small and disadvantaged businesses, and we are continually working to boost our outreach and inclusion efforts. Environmental management continues to develop programs at the headquarters level and is looking for additional ways we can support the expansion of diversity and inclusion programs to build new programs. I already mentioned EM's Minority Serving Institution Student Partnership Program, or MSIPP, and OREM's participation in this program. Developing cooperative arrangements is also an option that we have used within environmental management. Florida International University Applied Research Center works with EM federal and contractor organizations to partner minority students with EM personnel to provide mentoring and research projects to develop and deploy new technologies that address EM's challenges. FIU will be increasing its focus on robotics, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, and will even be building a state-of-the-art robotics and artificial intelligence learning lab where students can work directly on EM's technical challenges. EM is also currently working to develop a new program that includes STEM, manufacturing, and cybersecurity, a consortium with minority-serving institutions and HBCUs. We are looking for MSIs and HBCUs that are located near EM sites across the country that have programs that are in line with areas that EM is focused on, developing STEM, manufacturing, and cybersecurity, as I mentioned. But we are also exploring such areas as health and environmental science and technology and development. I am very excited for this opportunity and what it can bring to our communities and how it can benefit our work in environmental management. So in conclusion, there are many tangible ways that we can prioritize and reach towards our diversity and inclusion objectives. I opened with the story I learned about the Oak Ridge 85, integrating schools in Tennessee, how diversity is about numbers, and inclusion is about being a part of the whole and being included in your organization's fabric and culture. As the leaders and change agents at your companies and organizations, take action and make sure you are asking not only, Am I actively participating in increasing diversity? But am I, as a leader, asking everyone in my organization to dance? Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks to DOE for supporting this event. You know, as I listened to the words Nicole used, I really appreciated the challenge that she kind of issued with the idea of having a mindset of inclusion. Those three words really spoke to me, and also with the idea of as leaders to take an active approach in inviting our workforce into the dance. I thought those were just terrific ways to express diversity and inclusion ideas. This morning, we're going to move over to our next segment, which is to have a panel discussion. We have 4 area leaders that we've invited to come in and talk with us about having a diverse pipeline of talent, and how do you get that pipeline, and how do you attract it, and also how do you retain that talent. But those leaders come with experiences in diversity management, HR management, small businesses, and organizational development. So terrific backgrounds. We're going to take a moment to introduce them, and I'm going to start with Dr. Harry Boston of the Boston Government Services. He is the president of Boston Government Services. Good morning, Harry. How are you?
Good morning. Very good. Thank you.
Great. If you would, Harry, maybe just take a minute to introduce yourself and your company, and maybe share just why are you excited about diversity and inclusion, and why you think it's important, maybe.
Good. I can do that. Well, Boston Government Services, or BGS, is an engineering technology security company that supports missions of national importance across the nation in nuclear technology, alternative energy technology, cybersecurity, and environmental management. Now, we're based here in Oak Ridge. We've got 5 offices from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Washington, D.C. And to be able to support missions of national importance like we've been hearing about, you need the best talent, because the best talent delivers the best solutions and the best performance. And the best talent comes from all communities. The best talent comes from all communities, from all backgrounds, from all ethnicities, from all sexual orientations, people of all physical abilities, all religions, and all ages. And there's tremendous competition for that background, for that diverse group of people from all those backgrounds. So we work awfully hard to get them.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. We'll be talking some more in just a minute, but let me introduce the other panelists. We have Dr. Mae Mosley. She's the Director of Human Resources for Oak Ridge, ORAU, Oak Ridge Associated Universities. Good morning, Dr. Mosley. How are you?
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you.
Yes, thank you very much. ORAU is one of those unique jewels that hides over in the hills of Oak Ridge. We do an awful lot for the community. More importantly, we are a company that has had a diversity and inclusion program for many, many years now. But it's never one that is so anchored that it can't be improved. And so what we're currently looking at is how to improve on our diversity initiatives that are more inclusive and that also meets the needs of the current environment, the current workforce, the current state of America today. So we're doing some extensive research and looking into how we can improve on what was considered a relatively good plan to begin with. I've been with ORAU now for 7 years, and I bring up, as you said earlier, a varied background of diversity and inclusion, HR compliance, and all those matters that are focused on the people side of the business and how to make that environment a more acceptable place for all people of all races, of all colors, and who bring all of their differences to the workplace. And so that's what I do. All those things are why I'm interested in diversity and why I'm interested in being a part of this great panel today. Thank you.
Terrific. Look forward to hearing more. Next is Claudia Caballero. She is the president and CEO of Centro Hispano de East Tennessee. Claudia, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Caballero. I'm Honduran American. I've been in East Tennessee for about 5 years now. And like Charles said, I'm the CEO at Centro Hispano. We're the Latino serving organization in Knox County primarily, but our dream is further out into East Tennessee. And I mean, diversity is important to me because I'm Latina and I see very few Latinos like myself in spaces that represent us in leadership in East Tennessee. I like thinking that, you know, we're in a process in East Tennessee of understanding what contributions our diverse populations have. To me particularly, I advocate for the Latino community, but I definitely do a lot of work in strengthening relationships between Black and Brown communities, and raising all of our voices. But one of the things I think is so important about this work in East Tennessee particularly is the Latino community is very new to this area, particularly speaking historically, for example, from New York or Texas or California. And so oftentimes we forget there is a Latino community in East Tennessee, or we have a very unique, I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say negative, but I am gonna say negative, stereotype of Latinos in this region. And, you know, oftentimes we think undocumented, oftentimes we think uneducated, we think poor. And there is such a diverse and rich Latino community, especially in Knox County and surrounding areas, that part of the work we do at Centro Hispano is highlight those professionals and help connect them to different resources and to social capital in this area. But another part of what Centro Hispano does, other than workforce development, youth and family, we also help businesses in the area understand where they might have opportunities to increase diversity and to increase diversity with the Latino community. So really excited to be here. I'm passionate about inclusion more than diversity. I think Nicole explained earlier really well. I don't want to help people figure out numbers. I want to help people figure out how to change systems and how to make things more equitable for my community. So happy to be here. Thank you all for joining us.
Great. Thank you very much. And we also have Darris Upton. Darris is the Diversity Development Manager for Knox County Mayor's Office. Darris, welcome. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this panel. I look forward to a great discussion as we move on. You know, I started this position, and this position is very new to Knox County. It came along out of the mind of Mayor Jacobs. Diversity and inclusion is very important to him, and therefore this office was born. We came in sort of focused around how do we purchase more stuff from minority-owned businesses and so forth. And while that is important, we also have come to a greater understanding of the need to build relationships with communities to really make change happen in our county for the benefit of all. It's my pleasure to work with folks like Claudia and others as we go along this mission. We are sort of the new kids on the block in this realm of diversity and inclusion and equity, but we are walking very quickly. So I look forward to a great discussion as we move on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I love the idea of having new kids on the block. That's great, right? I mean, the more the merrier. As we start our panel discussion, one thing I'd like for the audience to hear is if you have questions as you listen to the discussions and you'd like to ask a question of the other panel members, you can submit through the Q&A on your screen. Send that on in and identify which panel member you'd like to address it, or if it's just open to the panel. If we have time, we'll address those questions as we get through our format. And then we'll get back to the audience questions. But let me kick it off with our first question of the morning. Harry, I'll ask you the first question. What advice would you give to a small business about diversity and inclusion?
Right. Well, I would say that a talented, committed workforce is essential for success. And that talent comes from a diverse population. The value of a diverse workforce is the different perspectives, the different experiences, the different ways of looking at things. It gives you more robust solutions, better performance, more innovation, and that's the key to business success. So if you can't attract and retain a diverse workforce, get folks engaged and get the best out of them, you're going to lose the talent fight. You're going to lose the challenge to develop the best talent and the best solutions, and you won't be able to compete. So I'd argue that diversity and inclusion is a foundation for success for any business.
Understood. Do you think your own workforce that's already employed, do you think they look for you to bring in diverse talent? Are you at that stage in your business?
That's critical. That's part of the cultural foundation you have to establish, that everybody understands that we're stronger together. We're stronger when we have more perspectives, where everybody feels welcome, where everybody feels they can contribute, and they attract more smart people.
Yeah.
So whether it's the Hispanic community, a veteran community, whomever, to get great people and have them bring their friends who are smart and want to work hard as well is a beautiful thing, and getting everybody to understand and invest in that's important.
Great. Claudia, you're up on the docket. What are some creative ways to proactively source candidates from underrepresented communities?
I think this question should be further ahead in our panel, but I have opinions about it.
Good.
So there's a lot of things people can do, and I get contacted a lot at Centro Hispano for quick fixes. And I tell people all the time, this is not a come over, talk about, I want to get more diverse candidates. Can I post this on your work board? When you're truly invested in diversity, equity, and inclusion, there are two things I think that are really, really important. And I mean, I run a nonprofit. So for me, at Centro Hispano, one of those things means put your money where your mouth is. Like if you really want to invest, that means supporting those organizations in your community that are helping build up the pipeline of diverse candidates. Is that the schools that you are in the area? Or is that the nonprofits that are building capacity for people? It's not enough. I hear this often. I hear like people call me and they're like, oh, Claudia, I've got these great opportunities for your people. I also don't call them anyone's people. Like they're all of our people. It's our community, Knox County or wherever we are, right? And so I always ask, I'm someone who's very comfortable talking about money. I have a relationship. Everyone has their own relationship with money. Mine is unique and it's also cultural. But, I ask, well, how much are you paying, right? And oftentimes I hear, oh, really, really good jobs, like $10, $11. And I'm sitting here going, I have bilingual and trilingual folks in my community who speak indigenous languages, who speak Spanish and English, who can navigate 2 different cultures. You're not doing us a favor, right? So let's frame this in a way that it's beneficial for both of us. We need jobs that are helping us grow and giving us upward mobility and helping our families break generational poverty. You need talented people who can support the work you do, who can help you understand and reach into the Latino community. I'm always shocked because before Knoxville, I lived in Texas, in Austin, and everything is marketed to Latinos in Spanish, in Spanglish, and in English because we speak all those languages, right? We have all these different intersections of who we represent. And so I'm getting off on tangent. One is investing in those organizations and those spaces that are supporting long-term solutions in our communities. And the second thing I think is really important about attracting diverse candidates is you need to build relationships with those Latinos, or I'm going to speak for my own Latino community in this sense, but build relationships with those people that already work for you. Oftentimes, we do a lot of consulting at Centro Hispano to help other organizations understand what they can do to increase diversity in the workplace here in East Tennessee. And oftentimes I feel like what happens is there are low-hanging fruit. There's low-hanging fruit in the organization, but we don't ask the people that we're working with, right? And so many times, we'll have our Latino community working day in, day out, but no one's asked them, how's your family? Like, I'm going to get started. Darris is going to smile because we're on panels together often. But one of the things I hear, people are trying to connect with me and tell me that, they care about diversity. And I appreciate that, let's build this bridge. But they say, oh yeah, Juan, he cuts my lawn every 2 weeks. He's a great friend of mine. I'm like, oh, what, where is he from? And so sometimes they'll tell me that they actually know it's from Guatemala or from Mexico or from Honduras, where I'm from. I'm like, okay, cool. But what part, right? Because saying that someone is just from a country is just, that's not an established relationship, right? Like, what's their family like? What are the things that they share in common? And it's also this really interesting thing about not being culturally landmined, in the sense that, or strip mined, in the sense that it's not just you asking the other person questions, one after another, but what are you also contributing so that they better understand you as a person? So building relationships with those who are already part of your organization is a really great opportunity, because once you establish that relationship and once you establish your organization as a great place to work, word of mouth is going to be one of the most powerful ways to attract other people that have the values that you're looking for your company. I'll stop there.
Very good. A lot of thoughts in there. with the idea of the investing long term, expand that a little bit. When you say you should invest long term in those that can help you, tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah. So, and this is, I understand this, and I don't hold it against anyone, because sometimes, all the time, I'm very, very busy, and every once in a while I just need a quick fix for some problem that I have, right? It's like, let's put a Band-Aid on this. But when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there is no Band-Aid for it, because we could hire, and I talk about this all the time, you could hire me or anyone else as your one Latino at that company, but that does not make you a diverse organization. That does not mean that you're investing in equity and inclusion. It means that you're trying to find a quick fix. And most likely you have not set up a system where I will feel like my contributions are meaningful. So I will be a token, right, for a while, and it may work. Maybe you're paying me a whole bunch of money and I can make it work for a while. But at the end of the day, and I'm very much about this, like, your soul won't be happy. And I'm a true believer in working where your soul is happy, because that's where you can give the most of yourself. So I could come in and I don't think I can do this, quite frankly, but I think I could come into a job and just do my job and not bring myself to it, right? Like, I wouldn't bring my Latinidad, my immigrant history, my multi-faceted intersections and all these things. But the best employee, and Harry said this before, like, your best employee is your employee that can bring all of themselves to the workplace. And so when I talk about investing long-term, it's, don't call me and tell me you need 5 or 25 or actually 75, which is not the first time I've gotten this call, of Latinos, right? I need 75 good employees yesterday. And I'm like, what have you done in this community to build that pipeline to ensure that I can help you get those 75 Latinos? Have you invested in ESL classes for us, or workforce development? Have you done mentoring with our youth group? What are you doing to build that pipeline? And I'm really passionate about this pipeline idea, because I think that in East Tennessee, we do miss out on that opportunity. It's long. It's not yesterday or tomorrow. It's 5 years from now. And we can start today, or we can kick it down the road a little longer and think about it 10 years from now. So that's what I mean when I talk about long-term investment in organizations in our community.
Makes sense. You're not only hiring, but it starts well before you hire. And then once you hire, it continues with the nurturing and development and the expansion and inclusion beyond there. Great. Mae, how do we get the entire company, including a leadership team, on board with diversity and inclusion initiatives in your experience?
Okay, so I'm going to say you don't get them on board. They start the direction that you want to go in, and the rest of the company get on board. Because without your leadership actually taking that initiative to amongst themselves agree that this is a good direction for the company to move in, it's an uphill battle for the person in the directors of diversity's role to now come into a place, be hired in. A little bit what Claudia said, you're going to come in and now you're going to be a quick fix kind of a deal. That's not the way it's done. I will be the first one to say, having a long history in working with diversity and inclusion, that along the way, over the years, that has been kind of the mindset of many companies. That's, we need diversity in order to get these contracts. We got to say we have diversity. So let's just figure it out. Let's get a person in here. And then there's no support, no baseline for where to begin, or no cap as to where you want to end. But a lot of boxes that will keep you from growing outside of those boxes as you try to build on the direction that you need to go. So my philosophy is this: if your leadership is not on board before you open the gate, you are destined to fail. Because getting the leadership to understand the importance of it should be the first role of the director, first role of the person responsible for launching an effective diversity initiative within an organization, is to make sure that the leadership understands the importance of it. And then the rest of that is probably the easiest part, because my opinion is that most of the workforce where you have a lot more diversity and your lives are more often engaged in a more diverse social life, they have a better understanding of the importance of diversity and diversity in the workforce. So getting them on board is the easy part. It's making sure that your leadership has a foundational structure that they can support the people coming on board. And I always say, I began with an assessment. Where are you now? It's no quick fix solution here. This is America. We've had a history of things not being where they need to be, especially when it comes to diversity and equity and the kind of things that keep us from being one. And so you have to understand for each organization, where are you in your oneness? And until we can get that on a level playing field, anything we build on top of that is probably going to be either very difficult, very challenging, or the foundation may fail you somewhere along the way. So my position is start with leadership. Don't get them on board. Make sure they are leading the way, and the rest of the people were following and already on board with the direction the company's going in.
Good. I also heard you say, as you were speaking on that it's useful to have kind of a baseline assessment of where you are, a truth-telling moment with your leadership of, why are we starting this? Well, here's why. Here's where we start. Here's our baseline. Expand on that a little bit?
Sure. There are a lot of canned products on the shelf. You can order them up, you can have them uploaded, you can have your leadership, you can have your managers, you can have everybody just click the boxes and say, yes, we've completed diversity training. And then you may feel pretty good about it, but what are you really looking for? So the assessment piece is really, you may not need every piece to be rebuilt from the ground level up. That's part of your diversity culture that you want to create. Defining what you want as a culture is pretty important from the beginning. And if everyone's on board that you want a diverse culture, you want people that represent the community, you want those people who bring their different ideas because of their cultural backgrounds, their ethnicity, their gender, their age, and all those things that make us different, that they're in agreement that they want this. So now you look at the pieces that are already there. Sometimes companies have small golden nuggets that are good and worthy of keeping. And then they've got some that are just need to be scrapped and started all over again. And so I believe that instead of spending time on things that are unnecessary to spend your time on, because this is not an overnight fix, this is something that you put in place, you build on it as years go forward, and all of a sudden your culture is such as you've defined it to be, because culture isn't changed overnight. Culture is something that's formed as we have certain behaviors, culture becomes that. And so from my perspective, just instead of wasting money and time on things that are necessary, assess your environment. I have a checklist of about 7 or 8 things that just to see how do you fit in these things. And this is done at the leadership level. Where is your mindset? What are you thinking? Where do you hope to go? What do you want your company to look like? And if they're not all on the same page on the front, then we start there. Maybe there's some training, maybe there's some some other events or activities that the leadership needs to engage in so that they can all leave out of the gate with the same mindset of where we're going.
Good. Thank you. Darris, can you give an example or examples on how to have an overall diverse hiring process, a pipeline that brings diversity candidates in?
Well, sure, I'll be glad to talk about that. It's funny you mentioned that because we are sort of in the middle of reviewing ourselves. So to my other panelists, everything you said, I have to agree with. First of all, it's all important. But as we have looked at our own hiring process, we have to start, where are we right now? What do our numbers look like as far as our personnel? How many people do we have working? What does our diversity look like? How many, in a real way, how many African-American folks do we have working for us? Do we have Latinos in our population? What does our Asian community look like in our workforce? These are real questions to find the baseline, as Mae just pointed out. But then thinking about our processes, who knows about our job postings? It's not enough to say, well, we have a website. Well, great, everyone has a website, but who do we share that with? And you have to be intentional about how you share that information. So making a phone call and talking to the workforce director at the Urban League and saying, hey, I'm going to send you a link to our job posting site. So because I don't have all the answers, I need help bringing more candidates that are qualified in, that I can, help me recruit these candidates, basically. What job fairs are we going to? If Austin East has a job fair, are we in that space? Are we sharing our information with folks who help folks with disabilities find employment? those are important questions that you need to ask if you're looking for diversity in your hiring process. We're in the middle of actually doing all of that, because when we looked at our baseline, it wasn't where we wanted to be. And it's not the direction, because I work for the mayor and the mayor wants us to move in a different direction. So it is definitely important to do all of that. Connect with the community organizations that can help you find the talent. But to Claudia's point, you also need to make sure that when you're investing in those community organizations and those communities as well.
Doesn't it make sense to include your workforce in part of that, that you have workers in your workforce, but they're also leaders in other areas within their community, and therefore they have a lot of, you exponentially grow your contacts into that diverse community that you're looking for. Does that make sense?
It does, and I would agree with that, because they're also going to be some of your best advocates when it comes to finding the talent that you need and building on that. The other thing I would say too, is look at who is in your supervisory management roles. That's going to speak a lot to who you are as well. It's not just enough to have, ladies and gentlemen doing, the daily things. Like, I'll give an example. Our Parks and Rec department is not just enough to be a guy that's mowing the fields. Who's leading? Who's in the supervisor roles there? And so we are really looking at that as well. We're taking a hard look, and that's something that you will find you will have to do as an employer, really taking that hard look at yourself, and sometimes that physical look at yourself. Yeah. What do your employers look like? When you go back and you look at your workforce, who do you see? Who do you see leading? Who do you see managing? So that's a real thing, and we all need to do that.
Yeah, there's a bit of absolute truth that goes with that when you look at your leadership team, and if you just see, just to use the standard stereotype, a bunch of white old guys leading the organization, well, it's going to be hard to develop the workforce in a way that mirror, you don't want it to mirror that, you want it to expand that. So you got to take that hard look. Harry, we'll come back to you. If you were a coach, if you were to coach a small business or company on developing a diversity and inclusion plan, what would be your priority?
Well, two things. One, I'd say listen to the people on this panel. You've got some great people with a lot of experience, but also I'd focus on culture. Even if you're fortunate enough to recruit a diverse workforce, you have to keep people, and talented people have their choice of employers. It's more than salary and benefits, although no doubt that's important. I'll tell you that right away. But it's work-life balance. It's opportunity to grow, to thrive, to be part of something, to feel like you belong. If you don't have a culture that values people and makes them feel like they belong, you can't get there. So you have to work hard to have a culture that makes each individual feel valued and respected for themselves, that supports them, gives them opportunities to contribute and opportunities to grow. So let them know that they're going to be treated the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to treat them, the way they want to be treated. And we want them to be the best version of themselves, whoever that is. We're comfortable with that. We want you to be the best version of you. You got to make it clear to each person that they're welcome and they belong. And if you can establish that sense of belonging, then you start to create community in your company, and everything good goes from there. So that would be my primary thing. The second thing I just wanted to say a little bit about was the pipeline. Again, you've got pipeline experts on the panel here, but we work really hard to develop those pipelines, whether it's working with Roane State, UT, reaching out. We use one program that's worth mentioning. It's called Circa. And Circa distributes our job advertisements to over 15,000 organizations, including Central Hispana, Olora Latina, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, 100 Black Men of Knoxville, Nashville, the Urban League, Indian Center, the National Diversity Network, Native American Advocacy, but also hire vets and vet hires. And so that's an important way to get out, but then you have to follow up and build that pipeline with real people who folks see and show that this is a credible place to go to work. This is a desirable place that you'll be welcomed, you'll be nurtured, and then you can start to build that foundation.
Love it. Great. Thank you for the tip on that. Claudia, let me move back to you. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a lack of inclusion in the workplace? And if so, how did you address that situation?
I personally can't say I have felt it, but I know many organizations and many people who have. And I think I'm looking at my question because it was a long question. So there's a couple of things to do in that. And it really has, this is a really complex question. It depends on, do you have the relationship with leadership to talk about your discomfort? Do you have leaders that you know you can go to, right? Is it a safe thing? Can you lose your job? Like, are you in a position personally to be able to lose your job if you have to say something? Like, this is a very practical question. Many times people don't have that luxury of saying, you know what, I can lose this job. I don't feel safe here. I don't feel welcome here. I don't feel, I feel discriminated against, but you know, what are the consequences? So I think that that's a really bringing that to the forefront and honoring that not everyone can do that at all times and make that statement. To address the situation, I think we're probably, you know, we're looking at the participants. We have about 70 something participants here today. The question, I think, is not if we as employees might feel unsafe or or not included in leadership or in decision making at the organization. I would like to flip the question around and say, you know, as leaders on this call today, is this a reflection to us? Do we think that our teams can come to us when they don't, when something happens that doesn't feel comfortable for them, right? And that's a really tricky thing to do. I'm going to say that right now because I do a lot of focus groups because focus groups make people feel safe. They say things in those spaces that might not be as safe to say, you know, say if Harry was my boss, would I really be able to go over to him and say, you know what, this happened and I'm really uncomfortable. And it's not always that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just because you have not heard anything at your company does not mean that it does not exist. It might be that they don't feel safe doing it or speaking about it, or that simply, you know, someone said this earlier, so I'm going to say it without hoping not to offend anyone. But you know, like if it's an old white guy that's the boss at the top, and maybe I won't even go to, I mean, race is important here as well. We're talking about diversity, but what if I'm a young woman or a young mother? What does it mean to me to go to my boss who is an older male from a different generation to talk about something that might be, I don't know, I'm making I had a recent conversation about breastfeeding stations at work places. So I'm thinking about that came to my mind right now. You know, do I create a space that this young woman might feel comfortable coming in to speak to me about something that she needs, right, in the workplace? So, there's a lot of, I think we've talked about it earlier, and Mae made a really great example of it. You know, like, do we have a checklist of things that we need to be thinking about and talking about in our organization? This is, again, just like investing in the community, this is an investment in your company. And this is, we hear over and over, the data speaks, you know, the more diverse our companies are, especially, you know, in leadership spaces, the more profitable we are. So when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, I want to believe that we all want to have more diverse and equitable spaces because it's the right thing to do. But if that's not always the case, like, at least because it's the financial thing to do, right? And I think that there are lots of places to start and to look from this, and it's a win-win. It's a win-win opportunity for everyone. Our organizations become more profitable. Our people become happier in those spaces. They can be their full selves in those spaces. And I don't know if we've spoken about this, Charles, and you know, when we talk about what does it mean to bring your full self to a space, not everyone always understands that concept necessarily, because, and I'll use a personal example of this. I was recently applying for a program, a grad school program, and I had a diverse group of people applying, and we were studying together for the admissions test. And there were four women. Three of us were women of color. One of us was a white woman, young, all of us very young. And there were a couple of older gentlemen in their 50s or 60s that were applying for the same program. And when we talked about the application process, all of us women were like super stressed, overachieving. We were like, there's 5 essays we can write. We're going to write all 5 of them. And I heard one of the guys say, you know, well, I said, did you apply already? And oh yeah, I submitted everything, my interview, it's all done. I'm just waiting on the test. I'm like, you wrote all 5 essays? And he's like, what do you mean 5 essays? There was only 1 required essay. what were all these other ones? He had completely skipped all the options of, what are your professional interests? What are your personal interests? And that to me, when we think about your full self, in one essay, he was able to say, I want to go to this program because of this. And there were no other elements that he felt necessary, and so when I think of myself as a diverse diverse candidate in life, there are so many different parts of me, right? And how do I bring all of those to the workplace is the question. If I wake up every day and all I have to worry about is going to my office and doing my job, that meaning, whatever my job might be, that's a one dimension. There isn't a day in my life as a young Latina woman that I don't have encounters of being a woman, of being a young woman in a leadership position, of being a young woman in a leadership position in a predominantly male white environment. And so when we think about bringing our full selves, even thinking everyone on this panel or everyone in this participation in this conference, you all have so many parts of you that come to the workplace. So the question is everyone able to bring as much as you are? And you might hear a lot about code switching. There's some really great podcasts and resources you can hear about this, but how many of us code switch in different spaces to be able to fit in and to be able to feel like we're being included? And how do we improve our workspaces so that our folks don't need to code switch as much? That's a whole different tangent. I'm sorry, Charles.
It's okay. We have another hour, we'll go into that, but we don't. But I do love the idea of a work environment that has the flexibility, that has the openness for employees to come and express the avenues that you talk about, where it's a safe place, whether that's to the HR world, whether that's through a roundtable, whether that's through open door policy, something that creates an environment of openness that allows for people to bring their full selves in and get that for consideration. So thank you. Mae, we'll come back to you. Do you have any success stories related to implementing a diversity and inclusion program that either you personally been involved with or that you've observed?
Sure, there are several, but I will start with my most recent and work my way back, and
Sure.
You shut me down when the clock runs out, right? Okay. But for me, I just want to piggyback just a little bit on what Claudia said just a second ago, because what she said is very important. And, in order for people to want to stay, and I will take it a step further than just the diversity being invited to the party and inclusions being asked to dance, but the equity piece, which is now I'm going to treat you right. I'm going to treat you fairly. I'm going to treat you equitably as I would anyone else. So, I don't want a one-time dance. I want the opportunity to feel that now that I'm at the party, I have all of the social rights as everyone else that are part of this invitation, and I can move freely and be respected and treated equitably in the process. So just wanted to piggyback on that one. But I will tell you about, one of the reasons I always say the foundation of what you build on is so important, because if you are coming in to try to implement something that's going to be like this brilliant idea, you have to have the fundamental pieces to sustain it. And so when I'm thinking about once you get your leadership on board and they have a full understanding of the relevance of what you're doing, you're developing the plan. They should very, very much be involved in this development of this plan. What is it going to look like? And so there have been several plans that we've worked on, and I will share one with you that most recently at ORU that we have launched. One of the things I think, and speaking to someone that people can go to, I know not everybody has an employee relations department, but the employee relations department carved out within your HR department, serving as a confidential house where people can go and talk to someone that they believe in and that has shown that they are a good character and will keep their information secure, is always a good place to start. We handle all of our employee survey data. We do 1 week, 3, 6, 9, 12, 24-month survey and annual survey. So I am the data household for all of ORU's opinion and how people feel and what they think, but we utilize that data. What we did though was, in learning some of the things about the culture of ORU, was that some people didn't feel that there was a level playing field. And so we focused on things that would level the playing field so that everybody feels that they are as important in the workplace as Andy Page at the top or the lowest grade level of an individual who comes into work every day. Why is that important? Because the success of the organization isn't about the leadership role, it isn't about the person at the top, it's about everybody that contributes to making the organization successful. So what we looked at was leveling the playing field. I launched a program called I Am an ORAU Leader about maybe 2-3 years ago. And we write about everybody's role that they function in and how they serve as a leader within that capacity. Doesn't matter if you're delivering mail from the mailroom or if you're the CFO, your contribution is as important as the other person, because without your contribution daily, we would be missing something that makes us successful. So we launched that program, and in launching that program, we also added to that what we define as our leadership standards. Really, these are our guiding principles. And these guiding principles are launched across the entire organization from the highest position all the way through the company. Everybody lives according to the leadership standards. We even have people who will hold someone else accountable for not living up to the standards that have been established. The standards have also been made a part of our, what we call our annual Cali coaching sessions, where managers and employees talk about what they're working on for the future. Everyone, no matter what your position, no matter what your level, has this document in common. You select one of the leadership standards you're going to commit to for the year, and you live up to that one. And so that is one of the ways that we've been able to kind of help start to level the playing field. So, you know, we're all held accountable to the same standards. So whatever I do on a daily basis to get my job done, or you to get your job done, at the end of the day, we have a level playing field to come back to, because I can now hold Mae Mosley accountable, because Mae, according to the standards, you should not be operating in this way. These are the principles we all live up to. When we're interviewing and hiring, we interview with people with questions from the standards that we've established as to the type of culture we want to have. So the people we're bringing in are coming in with the understanding of, this is how we operate as an organization. And so those are the kind of things that we start to look at. No I's and U's. You know, we have competitive opportunities between leadership position titles and the rest of the population. The rest of the population usually win, but it's this again to show that we're all coming together with a common cause to kind of reduce some of those barriers, because sometimes you're seeing, because you have a title, that you are somebody that's untouchable, unapproachable. And so these are ways of just leveling the playing field so that everybody gets to see each other in a different light, collective activities and events, as well as being held accountable to the same standards and principles that we believe we operate as an organization.
I love the environment that creates. That's great. That's great. I'm going to go on to one last question for Darris. How do you counteract comments from companies or leaders, such as, we just hire or promote the best person for the job, regardless of race and gender?
Charles, I have to tell you, I can draw a little bit on personal experience with the question, because this is something that I've heard in my life, applying for different jobs and so forth. And I've had people tell me directly now, you know, we're just going to hire the best person for the job, no matter the color or the race or whatever. It's almost a disclaimer. We're going to, it really is. It's almost a disclaimer, because then the next question for me is, well, how come I'm never qualified? Because some of those people have called you back. How come I'm never qualified? How come I'm never the best qualified for this position or that position, or whatever the case may be? And that's applicable whether it's entry level or whether it's supervisory or management level. So I think that question is sort of a way of almost marginalizing people to a degree, because when you look at your workforce, you should really kind of ask yourself, I hire the best qualified, but the best qualified never seem to be females or Latinos or African Americans or whatever. So you say this, but it's almost a way of, you put this statement out here and then you walk away from what that really means, and an opportunity to really do better. So it's some real effort to look at yourself And do I really search for diversity and inclusion? Do I really take this as an opportunity to be inclusive? I've had the opportunity to even serve in this position on other sort of panels and interview people for different positions. Sometimes you have to say, why do we have all these candidates and none of them are African American or Latino or females? You have to say that and hold yourself accountable to doing better. And that's what we're doing right now. As a government, you know, we kind of have to, if we're going to say it, we kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
Because the whole community is looking at us. So that's what we're doing, and we're holding ourselves to that standard. It's not enough just to say, well, we're going to hire the best person. The best people come in different packages, like Harry said. So you have to be intentional about reaching out to those groups. It just is.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it does. It's an onus we have to put on our leadership from a core value perspective to incorporate diversity and inclusion as just as important as the technical aspects of the job, just as important as the leadership aspects of the job. That's got to be a baseline, and that's really what you're saying. I'd love to continue the discussion, but we are starting to run short on time, and I need to move on to our next speaker. So I'm going to thank the panelists for their engagement, for their great thoughts and ideas. I'd love to talk more for the next hour to go deeper, but we have to move on in the agenda. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for the time. I'm going to now introduce Don Truza. Don is, let me just get back to my note here. Our final speaker is Don Truza. He's the CEO of the Transition Team Incorporated. Before Don opened the training, coaching, and placement firm he had for 20 years, he has 20 years of leadership experience in Fortune 500 companies. He's a SHRM Senior Certified Professional who's also received a Lifetime Achievement Award for contribution to the HR field. And so Don's going to come and share some practical tips that you can apply in your workplace. Welcome, Don. It's a pleasure having you here this morning.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm probably the speaker you've been waiting for this whole time. I'm the last speaker. So, and also the advantage of being the last speaker, we can go probably to about 2 o'clock. But that's a joke. Okay, so if we can get our first slide up and we'll get started. Thank you, Scott. If we can go to, there we go, good. So let's go ahead to the next one. So this is the first time in the history of our country where we have 5 generations working together. And we have found through studies that each generation has different values, attitudes, and behaviors, as probably most of you understand and see. If you ignore those, there's going to be a major conflict. But if you understand them, and that's what I'm going to try to get across today, and appreciate the value they can bring tremendous synergy that would really help your organization, and particularly in a global competition. We want to be careful not to put everybody in a box. The tools I'm going to be sharing with you will be able to help connect and influence the people. And through these studies, we have found that they're influenced primarily by parenting, and which there's a lot of conversations at the water cooler about that, technology, or in some cases, lack of that, and then some key events. And so what we're going to be talking about as we get to the different generations are some of those key events and how that influences the different generations. We'll look at some traits that they bring, and then also there's some key principles and how to lead each generation. Generations have similar characteristics through studies, and such as communications. Some generations have meetings, other generations just text. Major differences. We're going to look at how they make decisions, how different that is, and then we'll understand what motivates these different generations. There are similar trends because of things happen at about the same time in their life through similar channels. Some may be online, some through TV, radio for the older generations, mobile aspects of that in order to have everything in their hand, and also just talking to one another. It's important to understand that everybody is different. But as we look through a generational lens, we want to be able to help you to be able to how to reach and inform and persuade the different populations so you can be effective in your organization. So let's take a look at the different generations and how they're defined. First of all, the median age is nearly 40, which is changing every year. That keeps going down. Several years ago, it was around 45. Now it's actually 39.7. So let's look at the different definitions. Those are called war babies, or those are 75 and over. You may have a few of those, but not very many. Boomers, 56 to 74. Xers are those 45 to 55. Millennials, or what another term is Gen Yers, are those between 25 and 46. Centennials, which is the Gen Zers, are between 11 and 24. So you're going to have to be maybe dealing with about half of those. Just so you know, the next generation, they're calling Generation Alpha. And studies, of course, going on now, but those are under 10 years of age. But they claim there's one born every 9 seconds. So they're going to be all around you. 60% of the younger generations, the Y and the Zs, feel that there's a lack of leadership development in their organization. And to make sure you don't have a leadership gap, you need to be able to plan for the future. You need to have leadership training for these upcoming, according to LinkedIn survey. 94% of these two generations, so they would stay at an organization longer, which may be 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks, if offered opportunities to learn and grow. Then Sherm says 79% consider career development opportunities really important, and only 30% of the workers are really happy with what they currently receive. That means 70% are unhappy. But you want to be able to retain and close that leadership gap, you've got to offer personal and professional growth. Whether it's online, whether it's virtual training, maybe discounts, it will certainly pay dividends for your organization in the future. Another way to be able to attack that is through mentorship. 76% would say, percent of that generations, next two generations, say that mentorship would really help them. They would benefit from it. But it also, you've got to be able to understand it's the way you handle it, and the way you communicate. And we'll talk about that as we get to each one of those. But what this does is be able to help younger generations receive advice, and receiving it is different than just giving it. They have to be able to accept it. They have to know that's valuable and is going to help them. It gives them gain wisdom. And then we've also, studies have proven, and I think Mae mentioned, gains in productivity. 67% of companies increase in productivity, which is a tremendous amount. 55% of companies said they have a positive impact on overall profits, and that's according to nationalmentoringday.org. If you have a gap in your leadership, most likely it's a result of poor succession planning, and also looking at the talent you have inside and where as you're trying to scout it and bring it in. 71% of stockholders and board of directors say their leaders and the companies that they own and manage are not ready for the future. That's sad. We've got to be able to do something about that. So what we encourage you to do is have open communications with all your employees to find out who's interested in long-term solutions and development. Then, once you understand who those are, don't force it down everybody's throat, but capture those individuals and start cross-training for your future. That's according to Brandon Hall's Leadership Development Study. So in order to be able to recruit across the 5 generations, in fact, there was a question in the Q&A, you need to understand their motivation. There's different motivations for different generations. You need to ask questions. Don't assume just because somebody comes in with a nose ring or tattoos, they're all the same. They are not. Ask questions. What's important to them? Tailor your social media depending on your industry and also the region that you may be in. The recruiting in California, totally different than the East Coast. keep true to who you are. If you fake it, they'll know. For those who are old enough to watch Saturday Night Live, they had a skit where two guys come out, we are two wild and crazy guys. That's, of course, an extreme. But if you try to fake who you really are, generations will know that and then really go towards another organization. And again, stay out of the box. Treat people as individuals. You want to be able to adapt on the fly during an interview if you need to. So let's go ahead and start with a newer generation and work backwards. Gen Zers, also called the Centennials, again, 11 to 25. You need to, we have a lot of information, and because of the time, we're just going to give you some highlights. But 61% of this generation said they may be interested in your company if the reviews are good, and they may not otherwise have ever been interested. Things that are most important for these generations is salary, scheduling flexibility, benefits, workplace culture. And one thing that surprised a lot of people working remotely and a use of the newest technology scored the lowest. And we also want to take a look at what benefits are most interested the Centennials. Flexible hours. And that's because they want to balance work life and personal life. Overtime pay. Are they going to be compensated for things they're going to be doing over the normal hours? And then paid health insurance is more important to these generations than the two before them. 60% said they prefer to work with a small company, and that's 50 employees or less, than a large company. And that's because relationships are really important to the Centennials. And over 2/3 expect to receive their first raise in the first year or less. So that you need to put in strategy as you're making an offer so you can do something pretty quick. If not, they're probably already looking at another organization. They are most likely to stay at a job if it offers flexible work schedule, again, because they need a balance. And then also it has to be a likable coworkers. And then what that means is you need to be training your other generations on how to deal with the Generation Zers as they're coming into the workplace. Don't talk down to them, treat them with respect. Had one situation, I was talking to somebody that actually on this call now, and they said when they started, the older generations kept coming in and giving them personal advice about you should have a home and not be renting. You should be doing this or that. Don't tell them. They don't need another set of parents. And then one thing that they said too, it didn't really frustrate them so much, but they noticed it frustrated the older generations when they didn't follow that advice. So don't ever offer personal advice unless asked. Okay, never do that. 42% are more interested in flexible hours and overtime pay because they need a balance. That's really, really important to them. They have an event coming up to save the whales or save the trees. They need that flexibility in order for this to stay with you. And of course, 64% thinks it's harder to get a job now than it was last year, which is probably true. When you're dealing with Zers, the way you want to lead them, you want to be timely in your communications. If there's a coaching opportunity, try to get that as close as you can as that activity so they'll learn better. Impact and transformation diminishes as the time goes away. Be inquisitive, ask questions, and that'll make coaching so much more effective. Don't let it be just a one-way communications. Allow them some input, ask questions, what's important for them. And then most important with Zers, be brief. The X and Y's consider emails passé. I know so many people, if I communicate to them, I have to send them information. I have to send them a text. Please look at your email. I got some valuable information that for you. In fact, in 2009, which is 12 years ago, Boston College quit offering email addresses to incoming freshmen. They just don't need them. So talking about being brief, here's a list. There's much more of these acronyms. I just had enough. These are ones I could fill up one page. But it's interesting about the acronyms. If you look under the K that I have circled, if you're going to respond in a text, okay, it takes way too much time to put O and K together. So they just put a K. But thing is interesting, it may contradict a little bit, but if you go to the right over here on our acronyms, are you okay? For some reason, it's okay to put O and K together. So explain that, and that's like example. If you can explain why a triangle piece is cut in, if made in a round and put it in a square box, then you'll understand that. Next is POS. So if you see that, and most likely these people are still living with you, that means parents looking over their shoulders. The conversation is going to change. One thing I noticed that's not in here is, did you make up your bed? Did you take the trash out? Did you do all the things you're supposed to do living under our household? But apparently that's not important to them. So, okay. So let's take key events that happened in the Zier's lives. Terrorism and war is just really a part of their life ever since they can remember. Social media, smartphones, and texting, the whole world is in their hands. The Great Recession of 2008 has a major impact on their parents and how they lived, how they budgeted, reduced a number of vacations. Gender equality is so important. Inclusiveness is so important in this generation. And this is the first generation that has never lived without the internet. And if you remember some years ago when it first came out, one of the news stations, Katie Couric, I believe it was her, asked somebody, says, what is the internet? And they had somebody else come in and be able to explain it. So, but this is so important to them. And then COVID-19 has robbed the life experiences of this generation. From other generations, COVID and being sequestered has been an inconvenience. But can you imagine when you're somewhere between 18 and 24 years old, think about things that you've done back then. I remember going to concerts, playing on sport teams, travel together to different cities, and a lot of get-togethers for people, graduation and parties and all kinds of things. They have lost all of that, and they'll never have it back. So some of the traits that the Ziers bring, you need to understand that when they were 2, that's when Columbine happened. If you remember that shooting. School has never been a safe haven like it has been for us. Just a week ago, I guess, you can see that here in Knoxville. What a shame that those things kind of happen. But for this generation, school is a place of metal detectors and lockdown drills. Many started kindergarten just before 9/11. So terrorism wasn't just a threat as to most of our generations. It's real in their life. It's embodied in them for the rest of their lives. Smartphone brings realities of this world to them in the palm of their hands. When most of us had to wait and get the paper or be able to see the news or go to the internet to get, they have it right now in their hand, literally the time it happens. This also brings more independence, and it gives them more empowerment. So let's take the next generation. Let's take a look at some key principles for leading the wires. Again, these are from 25 to 43. You need to be able to budget plenty of time for orientation, especially in the culture side of it, soft skills. I have a friend and also is a client, but he's a president of one of the divisions for Borg Warner, and he was telling me when he hired one of these new wires right out of an Ivy League school, within the first week, one of them communicated to the CEO of Borg Warner stating, "Hey, dude, the food in the cafeteria sucks. What are you going to do about it?" So these are kinds of things you need to be able to help to orientate them in etiquette in business communications. They could have done that in high school and college. It's a different environment in structures of organizations. You need to provide structure and strong leadership to be able to help them, prevent them from doing things like that. You need to be very sensitive. There's going to be conflicts between this generations and the one before them. For some reason, they're like oil and water, more so than any other generations working together. And then again, here, offering mentor programs, but they have to be able to accept that, and they'll be able to learn from that. Let's take a look at key events in the Wires' lives. Again, from 25 to 43, Oklahoma bombing was a major impact. Clinton-Lewinsky affair, tells a lot about what's going on in our country and the morals of our leaders. Columbine high school shootings. Enron filed bankruptcy with impacted their parents. Airline files bankruptcy. Again, impacted their family members. And then Michael Jackson dies, which was a sort of a hero in a lot of people's lives, that they looked up to him because of his entertainment value. Let's take a look at some of the traits for wires. Technology is second nature. You want something to look up something, I mean, they can do it quickly. Informality is the norm, so you need to be able to help and guide them as they're into more formal structures. They embrace diversity, which is really great. They learn quickly, but they do need supervision more so than the others. So how does the Z generation and the Ys differ? First of all, Generation Z, again, the youngest one so far in the workplace, are pragmatic. Ys and millennials are more idealistic. Millennials are a more optimistic generation, often seen as catered by parents and adults. So if you remember hearing the term of helicopter parents, these are the ones where the parents hovered over them and made decisions and helped them with all sorts of things. I know of another company, a vice president of human resources, told me he's interviewing a millennial, and his mother came with him and walked into the office. The secretary said, ma'am, can I help you? I'm here with the interview. Well, you need to sit out here. I mean, I can't go in the interview with my son. No. Please sit over there. I mean, just unbelievable. We had others when their child got a bad review. Parents were calling the supervisor. What are you doing? This is my child. He's so special. And so, this is a generation that can really have that kind of problem. Gen Zs are more realistic. Millennials were raised during an economic boom. Gen Zs during a recession. On the next, there we go. So, some key principles as you're trying to lead Xers. Respect the experiences that shape their beliefs and thinking. They've had a lot of difficult things in their life. Offer electronic performance support systems. Clearly identify boundaries, what they can do, and more importantly, what they cannot do to be able to be effective in your organization. Honor their sense of work and life balance is so important to them. Communicate that repetitive tasks and quality checks are part of the job. They have to do that in order to make that project go into the next stage of it. They want to learn something every new. The more learning opportunities, the better. The longer you're going to have them, the more they can contribute. But make sure that it's very brief and scannable. Key events in Xers' lives. Apple markets the PC. U.S. corporations begin massive layoffs, and they see their parents being impacted by that. John Lennon was killed, and the problems with gun control. The Challenger disaster, and here was a school teacher that was killed in that, and that comes so close to them. Exxon Valdez oil tanker spill. Environmental things are so important to this generation. To be able to see animals covered with oil was just devastating for them. And then Operation Desert Storm, where a lot of times they saw their parents. In some of these cases, they were even involved in that. So the traits that the Xers bring. Technology is savvy. That's just second nature to them. They like informality. They learn quickly. They can seek a work and life balance, but they also embrace diversity, which is really important. Key principles on leading boomers. Boomers are those between 56 and 74. You need to let them know their experience will be valued, and it can be as they mentor the younger generations. You want to give them a chance to be a change agent and encourage that. You want to be able to give them in places where they can excel. You need to show them where their career track is going to be going, or else you'll lose them. Let them know that they can be a star and that you appreciate that. And then show how that you can allow them to be able to solve problems. Some key events in the boomers' lives: Rosa Parks in Montgomery, being, the Equal Rights, Civil Rights Act because of that. President John Kennedy assassinated. I know you talk to so many boomers that everybody remembers exact place they were at when they heard the news. Martin L. King and Robert Kennedy were both assassinated, which just devastated our country. Woodstock was a whole different kind of way to live and to enjoy music. Kent State shooting was just a big hit, and is trying to protest, and they were killed, and at a university. So look at some traits of baby boomers bring to you. They give maximum effort. They're highly motivated to succeed. They accept authority in the workplace. Now, you need to understand, authority in the workplace was much different than authority outside of that. In the 60s, when there was a lot of rebellion, once they cleaned up, got their head straight and got a haircut, they respect authority because they want to be able to achieve and get ahead. They're very results driven, more so than probably any other generation. And they will stay with the long term as long as there's a plan for them. And then they respond to recognition, money, and perks. So let's take a look at the war babies, those over 75. You probably don't have as many of these of any other generation out there, but you do want to respect their experiences without being intimidated. Sometimes they can talk down to you. So if you are a war baby, be sensitive to that. Don't rush training. Some technology can be intimidating for these people, and so I saw a YouTube one time where they give some technology to some older generations, and they had a hard time how to be able to use the technologies on computers. But then they also turned around and give Generation Z's, they put them in a room, they give them a phone number on a piece of paper, they give them 10 minutes, and they were going to pay both of these young guys $500 if they can make a call on a rotary phone. And I mean, it's hilarious. So the technology of years ago, they had no idea how to make a phone call on a rotary phone. So we make fun sometimes of the war babies not knowing it. Just the opposite of that. Technology that sometimes in some places is still around, they don't know how to use it. Not that they're not intelligent, they're just not exposed to it. Try to use older trainers, not the Xers, that's for sure. Demonstrate compassion and understanding and appreciate what they bring. Use larger print if possible, like I did here. But don't stereotype. Again, everybody is an individual. Key events in a war baby's lives. In 27, Lindbergh flies over the Atlantic. Stock market crashes in 29. Had a major impact the way people live, spend, and save. The Depression deepens in the U.S. Hindenburg tragedy was a major event. Pearl Harbor, 2,350 people and 30 ships were impacted. D-Day in Normandy, where 12,000 died. So they've had patriotism and people dying to be able to protect the freedom for the other generations. Okay, the traits that they bring. They're stable, they're in it for the long term, or whatever that means if you have over 75, but they won't up and quit after a couple of weeks. They have respect for organizational hierarchy. Most likely because a lot of them were either in the military or some part of that to be able to, for the benefit of our company and for us. They like structure. They're used to that. They do accept authority figures in the workplace, and they will certainly give maximum effort because they'll be embarrassed if they don't. So here's how they've used differences, and we've got a few minutes to be able to go through this, but I have on the left-hand side here some attitudes of how they look at business, motivation, company loyalty, money, value, all the way down into cars. And so you look at generations across the top, but business focus, quality is so important to war babies. For boomers, long hours because they want to be able to get ahead. Gen Xers, productivity, and they use technology to do that. Gen Yers is more important to be able to contribute to be able to make a difference. And then Zers is to be able to have a passion that they have and in your industry that you serve, that they can share and be there, valuable for that. What motivates them for war babies, security. Boomers is money, because that's prestige. And the first generation has just really taken off on that. Xers want time off, Yers want time off, but Gen Zers, 70% of them, which is really surprising, goes back to the same generation as the baby boomers, that money is really important in what motivates them. Company loyalty is the highest in war babies. It's a status symbol for boomers, your position, your title. Xers is just a means to an end to be able to allow me to do the things I want to do when I'm not working. It's today's payoff for Xers, and it's financial savvy for the Zers. Things that are valuable in their lives: family for war babies, success for boomers. The time, again, time off, individuality for the Yers, and a work-life balance. I keep stressing it, but that is so important. And you can look down through all the other ones. The last two pretty interesting. Famous doctors for their generations: Dr. Spock, Dr. Strangelove, Dr. Kevorkian, if you remember that, for the Xers, Dr. Phil for the Yers, and Dr. Fauci for the Zers. Cars. Sunday drives for war babies, drive-through windows for boomers, drive-by shootings, unfortunately, for the Xers, hybrids for the Yers, and all-electric, which is Tesla, which is really important for the environment. So on the next page here, if you ever need further help, here's my office number and email address, and I'll be more than happy to be able to share more information, other things that we do. We are a training program. We deal with interpersonal skills, leadership. But we do outplacement when companies are going through downsizing. We use these kinds of tools to help them understand who they are, the strengths that they bring, help them to be able to know how that fit into a different culture. So it's really valuable tools for them. So thank you for your time. I see from the listen here, and several of you I've worked with on different committees and boards, and some of you are even on some of our clients. So we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate the presentation and the information. It's clear that organizations really have to figure out how to be flexible as we're dealing with just the variety of the different baby boomers, Gen X, Y, Z, the different approaches to being satisfied at work. And you did a great job illustrating those differences and how a company needs to figure out how to address those and engage.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the other speakers that were here this morning. Particular thanks to Dr. Whaley and Roane State, and Kim Harris, who's the Director of Workforce Training and Placement at Roane State. We couldn't have done this seminar, this summit without you. Finally, I want to thank everyone that attended and spent a couple hours of their workday engaging, and thank our panelists for their participation. I hope this was useful. I hope everyone comes away with a better understanding of how to be a more diverse and inclusive organization, how to approach it a little bit differently. And if you have more questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of the panelist members or the presenters, or anybody in UCOR Roane State that you've seen here. I want to wish you have a great rest of the day, and appreciate the time, and keep the conversation going as you go forward and back into your workplace and back with your leadership. Thank you very much.